make sure you're in it, Jerry. Oh, you're in it. I see you. Okay. Good. Okay. Well, it is noon. You want to start us off?
Okay. Good noon. It's not afternoon. It's noon. It's not morning. It's noon. Thanks for joining us. Just wanted to get together with some friends today. Matt Lehman. And he's volunteer. He didn't volunteer, but we asked him.
But when you asked, I said yes. So that's kind of volunteering.
There you go. So the Adams County Republican Party Facebook page today features it's a breakfast meet and greet. The only thing is it's past breakfast time, and you're not actually meeting them in person, and they're not greeting you in person. But hey, it's the next best thing.
I would eat breakfast though.
I thought there was going to be breakfast.
I should have thrown on a few eggs.
I did.
Well, you're talking, Matt. I'll go
I
get
guess
some
it was
eggs.
noon. I should have said no.
Okay. All right. Just a few things I thought I'd go over as far as coming up, events coming up in the near future concerning the party. On August 22nd, we have our annual Benjamin Harrison breakfast at 9 a.m. Richards in Decatur. Kathy Humbarger with the Northeast Indiana Right to Life is going to be our guest speaker this year. On September 26th, we have a Nelson's Chicken fundraiser from 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's some yummy time there. You just drive by and inhale the fumes.
Yeah, you do.
And that's going to be at the southeast corner of Rietenbos Corner up there in Decatur. Winchester Street and 13th Street and, 550 North or something like that. The southern end of Winchester Street, I should say. And then I'm working on a Lincoln Day dinner for this fall. Hopefully we need to put something together. Hopefully it'll all come together soon. So with no further ado, I'll pass it over to our media coordinator, Andrew Patch.
Okay, thank you for joining us. I wanted to go over a few things. We will take some comments as long as they're good questions. We're not going to debate things, but we will dig into it. So leave your comments. We got with us today, we got Matt Lehman, which is our state representative. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
We got Ed Dyer, which is going to be our treasurer coming here in November. So that's a good thing.
Yes, it is.
And then we also have Jerry Walker, which is our leader of the Adams County Republican Party. He's our chairman. So, like I said, if you have any comments, please share them. And please like this video. We want to get as many people to watch it as we can. So, without further ado, Jerry, you want to throw it over? Or?
You know what? I did this live, and I just did in the introduction what I was going to do now.
Okay.
So with that said, it goes to Matt, and I understand you have a commitment in the early afternoon. So when you're done, if it gets a time crunch, we understand. If you leave,
slip away and
you slip away. You won't get to eat our breakfast. But
no, I won't take a paycheck.
Go right ahead, sir.
So, well, I appreciate being here. I appreciate everybody who is watching this or maybe watching this at some point. I'll be the first to admit, I think we are living in some very trying times. I think we're living in some very opportunistic times. And so I think it'll be interesting how we respond. And part of that is to respond as leaders, or do we respond as, followers, and we kind of go wherever we let the winds of society take us. I think if I look at Indiana, because that's where I live in, Indiana is in we're in a good place when you think, because everything's going to right now be focused kind of on the fiscal side. And when you think we're a state that had a little over $2 billion surplus, which will now be gone come the end of the year. But I think with some cuts in some spending here and there, we'll be able to balance our budget. As you heard the governor say, we're not going to touch public education. I don't know if that's a 100% guarantee, because I think we'll have to see where the dollars go. But I do think there will be a consensus around being able to manage our budget without any tax increases or things like that. States around us who had no surplus were already in trouble, had huge deficits. they're facing some massive either tax increases or massive cuts to their government programs.
Just think where we would have been if we didn't have that $2
Oh,
billion
my word.
reserve. We're gonna come out of here okay.
We'll
Not,
be okay.
not great, but okay.
Yeah.
But those other states surrounding us
Oh,
are
yeah.
just in horrendous
Yeah.
position.
And so, because this coming session is our budget session, our 2-year budget, as Indiana has. So that will be the focus. I mean, everything we do at any level will pretty much filter through that. I think you're also going to see some discussion around governors or governments, you might say, powers. I don't think anyone saw this coming, what we've had in the last couple of months in the
Right.
COVID world. And I think we're in some uncharted territory with who has what authority. The authority to do what the governor did, and I think he's done a really good job, to be honest, is granted to him by the legislative body. Back in like the 50s, during the Cold War era, we gave powers to the governor to protect us and keep us safe. 9/11, they had a few more tweaks to that, and then everybody just kind of sat back and did nothing. Now there's questions of, is there enough of a check and a balance? Should there be more of a check and a balance between the governor and the legislative branch, et cetera? So I think that's going to be an issue that will come up as well. So there's always something that hits your radar that you had no expectation is coming when it comes to the legislative session. But I will say this: I think it kind of begins and ends with the budget.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're facing the same thing in a way when you look at the county level. All budgets, not just the state, but county budgets are going to be impacted. City budgets
Certainly.
are impacted.
We've already had an impact with what we've been spending here locally. And, it all costs money. People say things are free. You want free this. Nothing is free. It all comes from taxpayers in one form or another. And that's what we gotta look out after.
You're a historian, Matt. Pay your respects to preserving history.
Well, when we talk about living in unprecedented times, it is amazing to me. I remember I told this someone the other day. I said in 1981 I graduated high school. Now that sounds like a long time ago, and it is a long time ago. You were before that. You were before that too. So
No,
I'm
I
a young guy.
graduated in '81.
Did you really?
I was
thought you
doing
were
82, but I got in the system
okay.
where I
Well,
scooted
Doesn't
ahead.
it-
1974.
That was a good
That was
year.
11, right? Well, so in 1981, for our English class, we were to read George Orwell's 1984.
Okay.
And I remember reading that book through the lens of 1981 and seeing that, Reagan's in the White House, Thatcher's in Prime Minister. And I'm reading a book that's talking about a governmental entity that is basically rewriting history, taking names off of buildings and removing statues. And I'm sitting there reading this thinking, this guy was nuts, right? Because how in the world could we ever get to where we would do these things in 3 years? And it just came all rushing back to me in the last couple of months, watching this I'll say craziness that has succumbed. This is coming to people as now we've got to kind of rewrite history. And as Orwell said, there is no history. History is the present because we've washed it, right? We've eliminated it. We've taken everything out. So as a Civil War reenactor, I've traveled around a lot of battlefields with both Union monuments and Confederate monuments. And I think this movement to just remove anything of history that we don't like, we soon lose that perspective of history. And we lose why do we have a Civil War? If you want to wash Civil War out, you take away everything that had to do with, they're taking down statues of Grant and of Lincoln. And I'm mesmerized by those who sacrificed for freedom. You demonize because of the era in which they lived. They say, Jefferson was a slaveholder, Washington was a slaveholder. They were also treasonous to the crown. And when they signed that Declaration of Independence, they committed treason. Well, had they not done that, we would not be here today,
Right.
having this Facebook
would-
Live, being
Right.
able to say whatever we want against our government, petition our government, worship where we have worship. And I think those slaveholders were what gave us our independence. And I think you've got to kind of filter some of this as the era in which they lived and the time in which they lived. So I'm very disappointed that there's any movement to rewrite history, even through the removal of historical statues and things like that. So I think it really shows us, and maybe you could comment, I think it really shows us the ignorance people have when it comes to just historical. You know, I mean, they tore down some statue of a guy who was an abolitionist. Well, he was a white preacher, and well, he was also the most vehemently opposed to slavery. And so I'm just perplexed at how you filter through your mind why you're doing what you're doing. And I think if we could have more conversations about just the historical perspective and why these people did what they did, I think people may step back and have a different perspective or view. But it's just it's troubling.
To know where we're at right now, and to look forward and to look where we're going, you have to pause and take a look back and see where we've come to get to this point. And just by erasing everything is just wrong. It really is.
I just had a good friend of mine who came back from Germany, and he said the most compelling place they went was Auschwitz, and he said, or it was in Europe, and he said, there would be a movement to destroy all that because of the connotations of the Holocaust. But he said, if that building's not there, you don't experience that pain, and you don't experience that horror. And so if it ever comes back, you need to have that, you need to know, why don't we do this? We don't do it because I can live it. I've walked through those places. And so I think that from a pure historical perspective, going forward, you need to have that history behind you.
Even the people that suffered through Auschwitz and all of that in World War II, they did not want those buildings torn down. They wanted people to see that in generations ahead, because people, even at that time, and people today want to say it's never happened. It never happened.
There's deniers.
And they say we need to keep those artifacts, those buildings, the photos, we need to keep all that so we know where we once were, where we came from.
And history is not clean. It's not a sanitized, you can't have a sanitized history. You take the worst, the good, and the bad.
I mean, we look at our personalities today in politics and in current events. You look at members of the Senate, members of the House, and each party picks on the other for somebody that had this affair years ago, or that the Republicans' favorite thing to do is pick on Robert Byrd, who used to be a part of the Klan.
KKK,
And even up until 2001, he used some terms that were very derogative. But it's one of those, no, he was part of the Klan, and we like to identify him because he was on the other party. But he converted his way. I look at George Wallace, who was very racist, blatantly so. At the end of his life, he and Jesse Jackson had a peacemaking.
right.
And that's what we have to remember. It's all not cut and dry. And a George Wallace of 1964 was not the George Wallace when he died.
Correct. It's an odd time, and I never ever thought that I would see the things happening in our country that are happening today. And just God help us get past this and get back to normal.
Well, I hope it leads us to a broader discussion of just who we are as a people. And I think it's you look back through history, again, looking at that lens of history, is there's always been something that has united us. World War II united us as a nation. And I think what's going to unite us back again, because we're better than this.
Exactly.
We are the last. I remember Ronald Reagan was talking to somebody one time, and they were talking to a Cuban refugee, and he was praising how he left Cuba when Castro took over and came to America. And Reagan and his friend were talking about this Cuban, and they said, that's really a great story, and glad we're here. And he said, but it's a challenge to you as well. The Cuban said, is because he said, I had somewhere to go. He said, if you lose this, if you lose America's freedom, where are you going to go? He said, you're the nation that people look to, the beacon they want to come to. If you don't preserve the liberty and the freedoms you have, there's nowhere to go. And that's the challenge that Reagan put out then is, we have to do our best to make sure we preserve them. I ought to be able to tell my grandkids, I think I'm paraphrasing what he said, is I want to tell my descendants, my family, that in my time I was here, I did the best I possibly can. And that's what we're attempting to do.
Very good. Anything else, Ed?
Oh, I think we just need to keep persevering on and do what we can to keep a common sense of normal and to make things happen. It's sad that it's the way it is right now. Calm heads will prevail. I firmly believe that. So, I would like to talk a little bit about my situation.
Exactly. Go right ahead,
If it's
sir.
okay, I am thrilled to death. Everybody, thank you for all who voted in the primary election. I know some people say that primary elections they don't worry about, they just vote in the general election. Well, for me, this year specifically, it mattered a lot. I won my primary election in a very close race. Thank you to my campaign competitor, Donna Mahan. She ran a good, clean race. I did too. Neither one of us.
That's not what I heard.
And now, come on. Neither one of us said anything bad against anybody else. It all worked out really well.
Wonderful.
And it worked out very well for me that I won. And then, just this last week, 6 days ago, was the deadline for anybody else to file if they were going to fill a vacant spot on the other party, and that did not happen. So at this point, I am running unopposed, and not even at this point, I am running unopposed for county treasurer, and will be the next county treasurer taken over January 1st. So I'm thrilled about that. I've been working closely with Tom Kruckeberg, our current county treasurer. He and I are going to be doing some virtual bond investment seminars this next week. And then we got several different things coming up through the year, all for the purposes of getting me up to speed on what's going on with the Office of the County Treasurer, so I can do the best job I can starting January 1st. Very much looking forward to that. I know my history of county council will be very good for me because I can see the big picture in county government on which office does this, which office does that. Everybody has firmly defined roles that they play in the overall part of county government, and of course the treasurer does too. I am not going to make any wholesale changes in the office. The county treasurer, Tom Kruckeberg's done a very good job. It runs smooth, effective, efficient. Rex Moore before him did a very, very good job. I want to take the things I can do, especially with my information technology background, and make things more efficient perhaps, especially in this day of COVID and people don't want to do any more person-to-person stuff than they have to. It will be easy to do that, it'll be safe, it'll be sanitary if you want to come in and pay taxes. If you want to do it online, we'll have several different avenues of different ways to do that. And that's an evolving thing as technology evolves. But I'm excited about it. It's sure going to be a pleasant 5 months till we get to January 1st. And I'm ready to go.
Great, great. And I remind people, if you don't like your tax bill, do not get mad at the treasurer. The treasurer does not determine your tax bill. He doesn't sit there and say, okay, what am I going to charge Jerry this year? No, it pretty much,
I just collect the
you
taxes.
collect
Yeah, I
the
will.
taxes. It's an administrative job, not a
Yes.
policy job.
Yes.
Pretty
Now-
much a rough draft of it is the assessor collects county assessor collects the information about our properties, sends that information to the auditor, and the auditor works it all for the whole county and sends the information to the treasurer, and the treasurer has the treasure of sending out the bill in the mail. and
Yes,
collecting
so
the money.
you'll be getting a letter from Tom this fall, but then from me starting in 2020.
Okay, all right, good, good. Andrew, I forget our order of service here. I didn't write it out.
I think we pretty much went past all that. But
Okay, I've got a
Do we
few
have an
things
order?
to say, but
Do we have anybody that popped in on any questions?
well, we have a lot of people that's joined us off and on, but no questions.
Thank you everybody who checked in.
We've had, I think at the highest we had 12 people watching, so that's pretty good for our first one.
Okay, the disciple showed up.
So,
That's a good way to put it.
Don't know where that came from.
That's the
12.
preacher
Number
in you.
12,
Yeah, that's the preacher in you.
Immediately go to that. You're 12.
so this will be available online too for people to rewatch. Is there anything that you want to tell people that we kind of left out, or anything that we want to go over if they're
Any other
rewatching
ideas?
this video?
If you still have questions after the fact, ask, and if we see it, we'll see what we can do about an answer. That's what I did with our last live one. The only other thing is, one thing I did not write down earlier. If you live in Washington Township, whether rural Washington Township or the city of Decatur that's part of Washington Township, or even the part of the town of Monroe that's Washington Township, there is a vacancy on the township board, and we will be conducting a caucus on Monday, July 27th at 7 p.m. at the meeting room at the Decatur Library. So if you're interested in that, and along with the other items I mentioned, we'll either have posts on our page concerning them, or we'll even create an event. So just,
And that is open to the public.
that will be open to the public.
Okay.
Yes, we have nothing
So
to hide.
we will create a Facebook event. We probably won't do a Facebook Live, but we'll have the event and
Yeah.
locations,
Yeah.
times available.
And just to
for
show,
everyone.
as Ed said, just to show the importance of the primary, in this primary we had one countywide race determined by less than 100 votes. We had another countywide race determined by less than 200 votes. 2 years ago in the primary, we had 2 countywide races in the primary determined by less than 100 votes. You say, oh, I lost by 100 votes. No, you lost by 50. Because that's the number of people, if they changed their mind and voted the opposite way, it could have tilted the election. That shows it could have tilted the election. That shows the importance of the primary. That really does. I'm looking back over, checking my memory. I think I've got it all set.
I'd just like to say in closing here that I know both Matt and I are very open to comments and questions from constituents. I'm open. You know my number, you know my Facebook stuff. If you want to talk about anything to do with county politics or politics in general, or just want to say hi, I'm open and available, and I want to talk to you. And I know Matt is the very same on the state level. There's nothing we do that's super secret, anything behind the doors. It's all out in the open. I want people to be involved. I want the people to know what's going on. And I feel it's part of my duty as an elected official come January 1st in the county treasurer's office to be open and completely transparent about all that.
Great.
And I would say too is that to build on that, I think a lot of people, just when you talk about what the treasurer does, I think a lot of people aren't always as attuned to what we do on a regular basis. So sometimes I'll get a call on immigration. And I'll tell them, the state doesn't have anything to do with immigration. But what I think we are is we're a great resource for people to say, I can't help you, but here's who can. You know, you got a question for the treasurer, you know, if I'm the recorder, you know, and you're asking me a question, well, that's a treasurer question. I don't simply go, I can't answer that and walk away.
Right.
I'll drive you to where. So I think we're an asset in the sense of we are information, and we will get you where you need to go. And at the end of the day, if I can't have an answer, I'll just say, well, Jerry knows.
All right.
That's why you're the captain.
All right. I wondered why. All right. Good.
Okay, so are we ready to close it?
We're ready to close
Okay,
it out.
so in closing, this is available on our Facebook. If you got any questions, you can message our Facebook page. Jerry will answer it as quick as he can. We got several people monitoring it, so we will get to you in a timely manner. So please comment on our videos or shoot us a message. If you would like to volunteer, the same thing. Shoot us a message on Facebook. We will get your contact information. We will call you, and we will figure out where the best place is for you to volunteer.
Thank
So
you.
I think that's it.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everybody.
Thank you for joining us.
God bless y'all. That's good, Matt.
Slide around you here. And you're right. I
Who's
do
that?
need a camera.
I should have learned how to operate that camera. I could have turned it off for you. All right.
You know, we had